The millionaire husband's
But what do
mistress
you want from us?
kicked her pregnant belly after
What do
she
you want
caught
from
them
us?
together in his office.
I am his wife.
But she never imagined she'd find him in the arms of another woman. Yet the betrayal was just the beginning. What happened next will leave you speechless and craving justice. Hi, my beautiful, loyal, and great family. How are you? I am lucky to have such a caring family. Let us begin with prayer. Heavenly Father, I lift this family into your hands. Bless every woman with courage and honor. Bless every mother who cries in silence for her children. Bless every man carrying hidden battles. Heal every wound, calm every storm, and let your light shine on every heart that listens today. But my family, hear me with love. My heart is heavy. I pour my soul into these stories, yet many no longer watch them till the end. This wounds me deeply, as if my hard work is nothing. Still I do not stop, because love never gives up. My love for you burns stronger than any pain. I know some who come for the first time carry doubts, but trust is the seed of love. I have never deceived you. Every story I give is born from prayer, sacrifice, and respect for every woman, every family, every life. If your heart is true, write present. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. Now, I open a new chapter, a new channel, a home for short stories under 1 hour. You can find the link in the community post. Don't forget to subscribe, because this is not just my work. It is our journey, our family, our legacy. We are one heart, one family, unshaken, unbroken, forever, the family of Mr. Peter. The moment Naomi Germer walked into that Atlanta gallery, every other woman in the room became invisible to him, including the blonde socialite his family had already chosen for his wife. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floors of the High Museum of Art in downtown Atlanta. But Moose Cochran's eyes were fixed on something far more captivating than any masterpiece hanging on the walls. She stood before a towering abstract painting, her head tilted slightly, lost in thought. Her natural hair framed her face like a crown, and the emerald silk dress she wore seemed to glow against her radiant skin. When she turned, their eyes met across the crowded room, and Moose felt something he'd never experienced in his 32 years of privileged existence. His heart actually skipped a beat. "Excuse me," he found himself saying as he approached, abandoning the boring conversation with potential investors he'd been trapped in for the past hour. "What do you see in that painting that has you so mesmerized?" Naomi's smile was warm and genuine, nothing like the calculated expressions he was used to from women in his social circle. Honestly, she sees a building that hasn't been designed yet. The way these colors flow and intersect, it's giving her ideas for a project she's working on. "You're an architect." Moose's interest was genuinely piqued. Most women he met were either socialites or fortune hunters with no real ambitions of their own. Trying to be Naomi Germer. She extended her hand, and when he took it, the electricity between them was undeniable. "She just started her own firm here in Atlanta." "And you are?" "Moose Cochran. And he thinks he just fell in love with your mind before he even knew your name." Naomi laughed, a sound like music that made several heads turn their way. "That's quite a line, Mr. Cochran. Does he use it often?" "Never. In fact, he's never said anything like that in his life." The honesty in his voice surprised them both. "Would you let him prove it by taking you to dinner? Somewhere we can actually hear each other think." 3 hours later, they sat in a quiet corner of an intimate southern restaurant in Virginia Highland, completely absorbed in each other. Moose had never experienced conversation like this. She challenged his thoughts, shared her dreams of designing affordable housing for underprivileged communities, and listened with genuine interest as he talked about his vision for making technology accessible to developing nations. "You're not what she expected," Naomi admitted as they shared wine and watched the rain begin to fall outside. "What did you expect?" "Another spoiled rich boy who thinks his money makes him interesting." Her directness caught him off guard in the best possible way. "But you actually care about something beyond yourself." Moose leaned forward, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. His money has never made anyone love him for who he really is. Until tonight, he didn't think anyone ever would. The sincerity in his voice made Naomi's breath catch. She'd dated successful men before, but none had ever been this vulnerable, this real. "Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places." Maybe he has. He reached across the table and gently took her hand. "Naomi, he knows this sounds crazy, but he feels like he's been waiting his whole life to meet you." As the evening stretched into the early morning hours, they discovered an incredible connection. Moose told her about the pressure of living up to his family's expectations, the loneliness of never knowing if people liked him or his bank account. Naomi shared her struggles of building a business in a male-dominated field, her determination to succeed on her own terms, and her dream of using architecture to make the world more beautiful and equitable. "His family won't approve," Moose said finally, as they stood outside her midtown apartment building. "They have very specific ideas about who he should marry. There's already a woman they've been pushing him toward, Elizabeth Thornton, old Atlanta money." Naomi's eyes flashed with pride and hurt. "And she doesn't fit their specifications." "You're everything they're not," he said fiercely, pulling her close. "You're brilliant, independent, kind and real. You see him, not his trust fund. That terrifies them because it means he might actually be happy instead of just successful." "And what does he want, Moose?" "Really want?" Without hesitation, he cupped her face in his hands. "He wants you. He wants to build something real with you, something that has nothing to do with family expectations or social status. He wants to wake up every morning grateful that you chose him." Their first kiss was soft, tentative, then deepened with a passion that left them both breathless. When they finally broke apart, Naomi knew her life had just changed forever. The next 7 months were like living in a fairy tale. Moose courted her with a devotion that left her friends amazed. He learned to cook her favorite southern dishes that reminded her of her grandmother's Georgia kitchen, spent hours listening to her explain her architectural projects, and invested in her firm to help her land bigger contracts. When his family discovered their relationship, the confrontation was explosive. "She's using you, Moose," his mother, Victoria Cochran, shrieked during a family dinner at their Buckhead mansion that Naomi wasn't invited to. "Can't you see what she's after? Their money, their status." "Stop." Moose's voice was deadly quiet. "Don't you dare talk about the woman he loves like that." "Love?" His father, Theodore, slammed his whiskey glass on the mahogany table. "This is infatuation, son. It'll pass. Elizabeth Thornton is perfect for you. Same background, same values. He's not marrying anyone you choose." Moose stood, his jaw set with determination. "He's going to marry Naomi, and if you can't accept that, then you'll lose him forever." "Choose carefully, Moose," his mother said coldly, "because if you marry that girl, you're no longer their son. Not 1 penny of the Cochran fortune will go to your mixed-race children." The racist venom in her words hit like a slap, but it only strengthened Moose's resolve. That night, Moose showed up at Naomi's apartment with tears in his eyes and a ring in his pocket. "His family just disowned him," he said simply, "and he's never been happier in his life because it means he gets to choose you." Naomi's heart shattered and soared simultaneously. "Moose, she can't let you give up your family for her." "You're not taking anything from him," he interrupted, dropping to one knee in her living room, surrounded by her architectural sketches and family photos from Georgia. "You're giving him everything he never knew he needed. Naomi Germer, will you marry him and let him spend the rest of his life proving that you're worth more than anything he could ever lose?" Through her tears, she whispered yes, and as he slipped the ring onto her finger, she believed with every fiber of her being that their love could conquer anything. Their wedding 2 months later was intimate and perfect, held at the Atlanta Botanical Garden and attended by Naomi's loving family who'd driven up from rural Georgia and a handful of Moose's true friends who'd defied his parents' wishes to be there. Her grandmother's famous peach cobbler was served alongside elegant French pastries, symbolizing the beautiful blend of their different worlds coming together. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife under the twinkling lights, Moose whispered in her ear, "You're his whole world now, Mrs. Cochran. Nothing else matters." Naomi pressed her cheek against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, and whispered back, "Promise her that no matter what happens, we'll always choose each other first." "Always," he said, holding her tighter. "You and their future babies are all he'll ever need." Looking back, Naomi would remember this moment as the last time she completely trusted another human being. Because sometimes the most beautiful promises are made by the most beautiful liars, and the greatest love stories begin with the seeds of their own destruction already planted in the soil of deception. But in that moment, dancing in her husband's arms in the heart of Atlanta, she was the happiest woman alive, completely unaware that the man holding her would soon learn that having everything wasn't enough. He'd want more. What happens when the perfect husband's appetite for excitement leads him down a path that will destroy everything beautiful they've built together? The fairy tale is about to become a nightmare. Chapter 2. The Perfect Husband's Perfect Lies. 18 months into their marriage, Moose brought Naomi coffee from her favorite Atlanta cafe every morning, kissed her growing belly, and whispered sweet promises, the same lips that had been kissing his secretary for the past 6 months. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Buckhead home as Naomi, now 30 years old and glowing at 16 weeks pregnant, stood in her home studio sketching designs for the new Children's Hospital of Atlanta expansion. Her architecture firm, Germa Design, had landed the prestigious contract just last month, and she was determined to create something that would bring healing and hope to the children who needed it most. "Good morning, little one," she whispered to her 4-month bump, her hand resting gently on the small but definite curve of her belly. "Mommy's designing a beautiful place where sick children can feel safe and loved." Her phone chimed with a text from Moose. "Thinking about you and their little miracle. Can't wait for the ultrasound this afternoon. You're his everything, beautiful." Today was a routine checkup, but in a few weeks they'd have their 20-week anatomy scan where they'd finally see their baby's face clearly. At 16 weeks, this would be their most detailed look yet, and Naomi could barely contain her excitement. What Naomi didn't know was that at that exact moment, 34-year-old Moose was lying in a suite at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Atlanta, his arm wrapped around 29-year-old Sophia Smith's naked waist. Sophia, his personal assistant for the past 3 years and secret lover for the past 6 months, stirred in his arms. "Does he have to go?" Sophia murmured against his chest, her blonde hair spilling across his shoulder. "Can't he stay just a little longer?" Moose kissed the top of her head, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare skin. "You know he wishes he could, baby. But he has that board meeting at 10, and Naomi's ultrasound appointment is at 2. The casual way he mentioned his wife's name made Sophia's jaw tighten, but she'd learned not to push too hard. Moose had been promising her for months that once the baby was born and Naomi was settled into motherhood, he'd find a way to transition out of his marriage and be with her openly. "She hates this," Sophia whispered, pressing kisses along his collarbone. "She hates that his wife gets the ring, the house, the baby announcement, while she gets stolen mornings in hotel rooms." "Hey!" Moose tilted her chin up to meet his eyes, his voice taking on the same tender tone he used with Naomi. "This is temporary, Sophia. You know you're the one who really understands him. Naomi, she's good and sweet, but she doesn't have your fire. After the baby comes and things settle down, he'll find a way to be with you properly." It was a promise he'd been making for months, and Sophia believed it because she desperately wanted to. Moose had a gift for making each woman feel like she was his entire world, compartmentalizing his emotions so completely that neither suspected they were sharing him. The truth was more complex than either woman realized. Moose genuinely loved Naomi, her goodness, her talent, her unwavering faith in their love. But he was addicted to the thrill Sophia provided, the dangerous excitement of forbidden passion that made him feel alive in ways his comfortable marriage never could. An hour later, Moose walked through the front door of the stunning contemporary home that Naomi had designed as their wedding gift to each other. Every line, every window, every detail had been crafted with love and the dream of the family they'd build together. "There's his gorgeous wife," he called out, finding her in her studio surrounded by hospital blueprints. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting protectively on her 16-week bump. "How are his two favorite people today?" Naomi melted back against him, feeling completely safe and cherished. "Your baby has been doing somersaults all morning. She thinks they're excited about the ultrasound today." "Smart and beautiful like their mother," Moose said, spinning her around gently. "He can't wait to see that little face." "Are you hoping for a boy or girl?" "She just wants healthy," Naomi said, but her eyes sparkled with excitement, though she has been dreaming about a little girl with your eyes and her stubborn streak. "God help us if this baby gets your determination and his stubbornness," Moose laughed, and for a moment his joy was completely genuine. "What are you working on today?" "The pediatric wing layout. She wants to create spaces that feel like home, not like a medical facility." Naomi's passion for her work lit up her face. "Look at these play areas she's designing. They'll have natural light, comfortable spaces for families, and healing gardens that children can see from their windows." Moose studied the drawings with genuine admiration. "These are incredible, sweetheart. You're going to change these kids' lives. Hell, you're going to change the entire approach to hospital design." Does he really think so? Even after 18 months of marriage, his belief in her still made her heart race. "He knows so." He cupped her face in his hands, looking at her with an intensity that made her breathless. "Naomi, you're the most talented person he's ever met. And the fact that you're also carrying his child, building their future together, sometimes he can't believe this is real." They kissed deeply, and Naomi felt that familiar surge of overwhelming love and security. This was what real love felt like: safe, supportive, unshakable. Later, as they sat in Dr. Martinez's office for Naomi's routine 16-week checkup, she squeezed Moose's hand as they listened to their baby's strong, steady heartbeat filling the room. "The baby sounds perfect, doctor." Martinez smiled as the heartbeat filled the room, strong and steady. "Everything's developing beautifully for 16 weeks. More than ready," Naomi breathed, and Moose felt his chest tighten with unexpected emotion as their baby's profile appeared clearly on the screen for the first time. "Oh my God," Naomi whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Look at that perfect little nose. And those lips, just like yours, Moose." "It's really happening," Moose said, his voice thick with emotion as he watched his child move on the monitor. "We're actually going to be parents." "The best parents," Naomi squeezed his hand. "This baby is so lucky to have you as a father. You're going to teach them to be brave, to choose love over fear, to stand up for what's right." The weight of her faith in him was both exhilarating and crushing. Here was this incredible woman who believed he was a hero, who trusted him completely, who was carrying his child and building their future with absolute confidence in his character. And for the past 6 months, he'd been betraying her with another woman. But Moose had become an expert at pushing guilt aside. He told himself he was protecting Naomi by keeping his relationship with Sophia secret, that he could give her all the love and security she needed while exploring the passion he'd never experienced in his privileged, predictable life. "She loves him so much it scares her sometimes," Naomi told him as they drove home through Atlanta traffic, her hand in his while she stared dreamily at their baby's ultrasound photos. It scares her. Why? Because she never knew she could feel this much. Before him, she was just building a career, going through the motions. He made her want something bigger, a real family, a real partnership, a real forever. Naomi turned to study his profile as he navigated the busy streets, her heart so full she could barely breathe. He already is everything she ever dreamed of, Moose. He's her hero, her safe place, her whole world. She trusts him with her life, with their baby's life, with her heart. Her words hit him like a physical blow, but he smiled and brought her hand to his lips. "And he'll never betray that trust, sweetheart. Never." As they pulled into the driveway of their dream home in the exclusive Ansley Park neighborhood, Naomi felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the life they'd built together. Every room held memories of laughter and intimacy. Every corner reflected their shared dreams and growing love. "What is she thinking about?" Moose asked as they sat in the car, both reluctant to break the spell of the perfect afternoon. "Just this, them. How impossibly blessed she feels." She turned to face him fully. "Moose, promise her something. Anything. Promise her that no matter what challenges come their way, they'll always remember this feeling. This certainty that they're meant to be together. Promise her that he'll always choose them, choose their family, no matter what temptations come along." Moose looked into her trusting, loving eyes and felt something twist in his chest. He promises, Naomi, you and their baby will always come first. Always. That evening, as Naomi worked on her hospital designs while he read pregnancy books aloud, Moose's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "How did the ultrasound go? Is he still coming tomorrow night?" He glanced at his wife, completely absorbed in creating something beautiful for sick children, and quickly typed back, "Perfect." And yes, same time tomorrow. The ease with which he lied, even to himself, should have terrified him. But Moose had convinced himself he was managing both relationships skillfully, giving each woman what she needed without either one suffering. He had no idea that in just 4 months his carefully constructed double life would explode in a way that would destroy everything he'd ever cared about. As Naomi drifted off to sleep in his arms that night, her hand resting on their growing baby, she whispered, "She's the luckiest woman in the world." And Moose, already planning tomorrow's rendezvous with Sophia, whispered back, "He's the lucky one." Neither of them knew that across town, Sophia was staring at her phone, growing more jealous and impatient with each passing day. The affair that had started as exciting rebellion was becoming a prison of stolen moments and empty promises, and patience, as Moose was about to learn, was not one of Sophia Smith's virtues. What happens when Sophia's jealousy reaches a breaking point and she makes a discovery that will change everything? The perfect marriage is about to face its greatest test. Chapter 3. 2 Women, One Devastating Secret. The pregnancy test in Sophia's trembling hands showed 2 pink lines, and she knew that the man who promised to love only his wife was about to become a father to 2 babies born just 4 months apart. Sophia Smith stared at the pregnancy test in the marble bathroom of her Midtown Atlanta high-rise apartment, her hands shaking so violently she nearly dropped it. 2 pink lines, unmistakable, undeniable. She was 4 weeks pregnant with Moose Cochran's baby, and his wife was already 18 weeks along with his other child. "This changes everything," she whispered to her reflection in the mirror. Her blonde hair was disheveled from their passionate afternoon together just 3 hours earlier when Moose had whispered promises about their future after he sorted things out with Naomi. The timing couldn't have been worse, or better, depending on how she looked at it. Moose's affair with her had started when Naomi was so focused on establishing her new architecture firm that she barely noticed her husband's wandering attention. What had begun as stolen glances and late-night work sessions had evolved into a full-blown relationship that had been going on for nearly 7 months now. 20 minutes later, she was pacing her living room, phone in hand, rehearsing what she would say. Moose had just left to go home to Naomi for their weekly ultrasound appointment, something that never failed to make Sophia's blood boil with jealousy. How could he be so tender with both of them? How could he make each of them feel like they were his entire world? Meanwhile, across town in Ansley Park, Naomi was getting ready for their doctor's appointment, humming softly as she chose a dress that would accommodate her 18-week bump. At 4.5 months pregnant, she was in that glorious second trimester phase, her energy restored and her excitement about their upcoming anatomy scan in 2 weeks growing stronger every day. "Today we find out if you're a little prince or princess," she said to her belly, smoothing her hands over the firm curve. "Either way, Daddy's going to spoil you rotten." Her phone buzzed with a text from Moose. "Running a few minutes late from the office. Start without him if needed, he'll be there for the big reveal." Naomi frowned slightly. Moose had been working longer hours lately, often coming home after she was already asleep. She'd attributed it to the stress of his new VP position, but sometimes she wondered if there was something else keeping him away. What she didn't know was that Moose was sitting in his car outside Sophia's building, trying to calm his racing heart before their confrontation. Sophia's urgent text an hour earlier, "Emergency, come now," had sent panic shooting through his system. Finally, Sophia's voice was tight with emotion when she opened her apartment door. She was starting to think he wasn't coming. "What's the emergency?" Moose asked as he stepped inside, checking his watch nervously. "He has to be at Naomi's appointment in 30 minutes. "Oh, he does." Sophia's smile was sharp and dangerous. "Well, this might change his priorities. She's pregnant, Moose." The words hit him like a physical blow. He staggered backward, reaching for the nearest chair as the room seemed to spin around him. "What did you say?" "She's pregnant. With his baby. 4 weeks along, which means it happened right around the time his wife started showing." Sophia's voice was triumphant and terrifying. "Funny how seeing Naomi's pregnancy made him so passionate with her, isn't it?" Moose's mind raced frantically. 2 pregnant women. 2 babies, 2 lives he'd have to support, 2 futures he'd have to explain. The carefully constructed world he'd built was about to come crashing down around him. "Are you absolutely certain?" he whispered, though he knew Sophia wouldn't joke about something like this. "She took 3 tests yesterday and had blood work done this morning. Dr. Peterson confirmed it an hour ago. 4 weeks and 2 days pregnant." Sophia sat down across from him, her expression a mixture of joy and cold calculation. "So, what's the plan, Daddy?" "He needs time to think." "Time?" Sophia's laugh was bitter. "She's been giving him time for 7 months, Moose. Time to choose her, time to leave his wife, time to build a real life together. Well, now nature's made the choice for him." "What do you mean?" "She means that his wife is going to find out one way or another. Either he tells her or she does. But either way, this baby," Sophia placed her hand on her still flat stomach, "deserves a father who's present and proud, not hiding in hotel rooms." Moose checked his watch again, panic rising in his throat. He has to go. Naomi's appointment is more important than the woman carrying his other child? Sophia's voice turned dangerously sweet. "Interesting priorities." "That's not what he meant. It's exactly what he meant. Go, Moose. Run to your perfect little wife and your perfect little appointment. But remember while you're holding her hand and cooing over ultrasound pictures that there's another baby, his baby, that he's completely ignoring." 15 minutes later, Moose rushed into Dr. Martinez's office, where Naomi was already lying on the examination table, her shirt pulled up to reveal her rounded belly. She looked so beautiful, so trusting, so completely unaware that her husband had just learned he was going to be a father twice over. "There he is," Naomi said with relief when she saw him. She was worried he'd miss it. "He wouldn't miss this for the world," Moose said, taking her hand and trying to push thoughts of Sophia out of his mind. "How's everything looking, Doctor?" "Martinez?" "Perfect." The doctor smiled as she moved the ultrasound wand across Naomi's belly. "Baby's developing beautifully, strong heartbeat, good size, very active, and if you want to know the gender—" "Yes," Naomi said excitedly, squeezing Moose's hand. "We've been dying to know. Congratulations, you're having a little girl." Naomi burst into tears of joy, and Moose felt his heart clench as he watched their daughter move on the screen. She was real, she was healthy, and she was going to be born into a world where her father was living a lie. "A daughter," Naomi sobbed happily. "She's going to be beautiful and strong and brave, just like her daddy taught her to be." As they drove home, Naomi chatted excitedly about nursery colors and names, while Moose's phone buzzed continuously with texts from Sophia. Each message was a reminder of the impossible situation he'd created, the double life that was becoming harder to maintain with each passing day. "Maya," Naomi said suddenly. "If we name her Maya, it means illusion in some cultures, but in others it means mother or goddess." She likes the idea of their daughter having a name that means strength. "Maya Cochrane," Moose repeated, and the name felt like both a blessing and a curse. "It's perfect." That night, after Naomi fell asleep with her hand on her belly and baby name books scattered around the bed, Moose slipped out to his study and called Sophia back. "How did the appointment go?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. "It's a girl." "Maya. She's healthy and perfect." Despite everything, pride crept into his voice. "How nice for them," Sophia said coldly. "And what about this baby? What about their child? Does he even care that there are 2 little lives depending on him now? Of course he cares." "Then prove it. She wants an answer, Moose. Is he going to leave his wife and be with her, or is she going to raise their child alone while he plays happy family?" "Sophia, please, just give him more time." "She's given him 7 months. She's not giving him any more. He has 2 weeks to make a choice, or she'll make it for him." "What does that mean?" "It means she'll tell Naomi everything. About the affair, about the baby, about all the lies he's been telling. His perfect little wife deserves to know what kind of man she really married." The threat hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Moose had always been able to charm his way out of difficult situations, but this was different. This was real consequences for real choices, and for the first time in his life, he couldn't manipulate his way to a solution that gave him everything he wanted. 2 weeks, Sophia repeated, and Moose. She'd choose carefully if she were him, because this baby is going to need a father, and if it can't be him, she'll find someone who actually wants the job. As the line went dead, Moose sat in his study surrounded by photos of his life with Naomi, their wedding, their first home, ultrasound pictures from today, and realized he'd created a situation that had no good solutions. In 2 weeks, his world would either change forever or it would explode completely. And for the first time since he'd started this affair, Moose Cochrane wasn't sure he was smart enough to find a way out. What happens when Sophia's patience finally runs out and she decides to force Moose's hand in the most devastating way possible? The countdown to destruction has begun. Chapter 4. The Calm Before the Storm. While Naomi glowed with the radiance of a woman 6 months pregnant and completely loved, Sophia was across town at 8 weeks along, planning exactly how she would destroy that perfect little fantasy. At 24 weeks pregnant, Naomi had reached that beautiful phase where her bump was perfectly round, her energy was high, and she felt more connected to her unborn daughter than ever before. She stood in their master bedroom, folding tiny pink onesies that she'd bought during a shopping trip with her mother, who'd driven up from rural Georgia to help prepare for her granddaughter's arrival. "Look at these little socks, Maya," she whispered to her belly, holding up impossibly small pink booties. "Grandma Rose picked these out especially for you. She can't wait to spoil you rotten." The nursery was nearly complete now, a sanctuary of soft pastels and natural wood that Naomi had designed to be both beautiful and functional. The crib was positioned to catch the morning light, and she'd painted a mural of Georgia peach blossoms on one wall as a tribute to her heritage. Her phone chimed with a text from Moose. "Stuck in another late meeting. Don't wait up. He'll be home after midnight. Love you both." Naomi frowned at the message. This was the 4th night this week that Moose had worked past 10 p.m. His promotion to vice president had definitely brought more responsibilities, but she missed their quiet evenings together, talking to the baby and planning their future. What she didn't know was that Moose wasn't at the office at all. He was 20 minutes away at Sophia's apartment, trying to manage what had become an increasingly volatile situation. Sophia, now 8 weeks pregnant and dealing with morning sickness, was growing more impatient and demanding with each passing day. "She's tired of this Moose," Sophia said, pacing her living room in silk pajamas that barely concealed her still flat stomach. "She's tired of hiding, tired of being the secret, tired of watching him play devoted husband while she deals with pregnancy symptoms alone." "You're not alone," Moose said, pulling her close and trying to soothe her with the same gentle touches that usually calmed Naomi. "He's here, isn't he? He's been here every night this week." "For a few hours before he runs home to her," Sophia snapped, pulling away from him. "Do you know what it's like, Moose? Throwing up every morning while knowing that his wife gets breakfast in bed and foot rubs and all the things a pregnant woman should get from the father of her baby." The accusation hit its mark. Moose had been extra attentive to Naomi lately, partly from genuine excitement about their daughter and partly from guilt about his double life. He brought her morning coffee, rubbed her swollen feet, and talked to Maya through Naomi's belly every night. "After Maya is born," he said desperately, "things will be different. Naomi will be focused on the baby, and he'll have more freedom to be with you properly." "And what about this baby?" Sophia's hand moved to her stomach. "What about their child? Is this baby supposed to just wait in the shadows while he plays father to his legitimate daughter?" The word legitimate hung in the air like a weapon. Moose had never thought of it that way, that one of his children would be celebrated while the other would be hidden. But Sophia's pregnancy was forcing him to confront realities he'd been avoiding. "Both babies will be loved," he said weakly. By whom? By him, in stolen moments between his real family obligations. Sophia's eyes flashed with anger and hurt. "She won't raise his child like some dirty secret, Moose. Either he chooses her and they build a real family together, or she'll make sure Naomi knows exactly what kind of man she married." Meanwhile, Naomi was having dinner with her mother at their favorite restaurant in Decatur, completely unaware that her marriage was hanging by a thread. "You look radiant, sweetheart," Rose Germer said, reaching across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. "Pregnancy suits you, and Moose is taking such good care of you both." "He is," Naomi agreed, though a small frown crossed her face. "Though he's been working so much lately. She barely sees him except on weekends. That's normal for successful men, especially when they're about to become fathers. Your daddy worked extra hard before you were born, wanting to provide the best for his family." She knows. It's just, sometimes she feels like she's boring him. Like maybe the reality of marriage and pregnancy isn't as exciting as he thought it would be. Rose studied her daughter's face with the intuition that only mothers possess. Has he given you reason to think that? No, not really. He's still loving and attentive when he's home. She's probably just being emotional because of the hormones. But even as she said it, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in her marriage. Back at Sophia's apartment, the conversation was reaching a dangerous climax. She's giving him 1 week, Sophia announced, her voice cold and final. 7 days to tell Naomi about her, about the baby, about everything, or she'll do it herself. A week isn't enough time. It's plenty of time to find some courage, Sophia snapped. She's 8 weeks pregnant, Moose. In a month, she'll start showing. In 7 months, she'll give birth to his child. The longer he waits, the worse this gets for everyone. What if he can't? What if telling Naomi destroys her? What about destroying her? Sophia's voice cracked with emotion. What about the destruction of carrying his baby while watching him worship his wife? What about the destruction of loving someone who treats her like a dirty secret? For the first time, Moose saw past Sophia's beauty and ambition to the pain underneath. She wasn't just his exciting mistress anymore. She was a woman carrying his child, dealing with pregnancy alone while he went home to comfort and cherish his wife through the same experience. He'll figure something out, he said desperately. No, he'll make a choice. Her or Naomi, this baby or that baby, real love or convenient love. 1 week, Moose, that's all the time he gets. The next morning, Naomi woke up alone again, finding a note from Moose saying he'd left early for a breakfast meeting. She was starting to feel like she was married to a ghost, someone who appeared for photo-worthy moments but was absent for the daily reality of building a life together. It's just work stress, she told herself, as she got ready for her own day. She had a presentation to the hospital board about the pediatric wing designs, and she needed to focus on her career, not her suddenly insecure feelings about her marriage. At the presentation, Naomi was brilliant and confident, walking the board members through designs that would revolutionize how children experienced medical care. The standing ovation she received reminded her that she was more than just someone's wife. She was a talented professional building something meaningful. But even in her moment of triumph, she found herself wishing Moose was there to celebrate with her. The way he used to be before work became his excuse for everything. That evening, when Moose finally came home at nearly midnight, he found Naomi asleep on the couch, surrounded by baby books and fabric samples for the nursery. She looked so peaceful, so trusting, with one hand resting on her belly where their daughter was growing. The sight of her should have filled him with love and gratitude. Instead, all he could think about was Sophia's ultimatum and the impossible choice he was being forced to make. "Naomi," he whispered, gently waking her. "Come to bed, sweetheart. Sleeping on the couch isn't good for you or Maya." You're home," she murmured sleepily, allowing him to help her up. "How was your day?" "Long," he said, which was at least partially true. "How was the presentation?" "They approved the designs unanimously. The pediatric wing is going to be everything she dreamed of." Even half asleep, Naomi's excitement about her work shone through. "He's so proud of you," Moose said, and in that moment he meant it completely. "You're going to change so many lives with this project." She hopes so. She wants Maya to grow up seeing that Mommy uses her talents to help people. Naomi leaned against him as they walked upstairs. "Speaking of Maya, she's been very active lately. She thinks she's practicing soccer in there." As they got ready for bed, Moose tried to memorize every detail of this domestic bliss. Naomi brushing her teeth while humming, the way she rubbed lotion on her belly while talking to their daughter, the trust in her eyes when she looked at him. In 1 week, it might all be gone. "Moose?" Naomi's voice was soft as they lay in bed, her back curved against his chest while his hand rested on her bump. promise her something. His heart clenched. What? Promise her that no matter how busy work gets, he'll always make time for their family. She doesn't need grand gestures or expensive gifts. She just needs him present, really present. The irony of her request, when he was more absent than she could possibly imagine, made him feel like the worst kind of fraud. He promises, he whispered into her hair. He'll always make time for you and Maya. But even as he made the promise, Moose knew it might be a lie, because in 6 days, depending on the choice he made, he might not have the right to make promises to Naomi anymore. As she drifted off to sleep in his arms, Moose lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to choose between the woman who'd saved his soul and the woman carrying his child who'd threatened to destroy everything if he didn't choose her. 6 days to decide the fate of 3 lives. 6 days to find a solution to an impossible problem. 6 days before his carefully constructed world would either transform or explode. What happens when Sophia's deadline arrives and Moose realizes there's no choice that doesn't destroy someone he cares about? The final countdown has begun. Chapter 5. The world collapses. The sound that escaped Naomi's lips when she opened that office door wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a sob. It was the sound of a woman's entire universe cracking in half. At 39 weeks pregnant, just days away from her due date, Naomi moved carefully through the marble lobby of Cochrane Industries in downtown Atlanta, carrying an insulated bag containing Moose's favorite lunch from home. She had spent the morning making his grandmother's famous fried chicken and biscuits, wanting to surprise her husband, who had been working 14-hour days for the past week. "He's going to be so happy," she murmured to Maya, who was practicing what felt like gymnastics routines in her belly. "Daddy's been so stressed with the Morrison acquisition. He needs his favorite girls to remind him what really matters." The security guard smiled warmly as she passed, and several employees she recognized from company parties stopped to congratulate her on how beautiful she looked. At 9 months along, Naomi was in that final stretch of pregnancy where every day felt significant, her belly perfectly round and Maya's movements growing stronger and more defined. She had tried calling Moose's office, but his assistant had said he was in back-to-back meetings that couldn't be interrupted. But Naomi knew her husband would always make time for her, especially when she had made his comfort food from scratch. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt longer than usual, probably because Maya was being particularly active and making it hard for Naomi to get comfortable. She had been having Braxton Hicks contractions all week, practice contractions that Dr. Martinez had assured her were completely normal for this stage of pregnancy. Mrs. Cochrane, Jennifer, the executive assistant, looked genuinely panicked when Naomi appeared at her desk. "What a wonderful surprise, but Mr. Cochrane is in a very important meeting with international investors that absolutely cannot be interrupted." "Oh, don't worry," Naomi laughed, already heading toward Moose's corner office. "I'm his wife. He won't mind being interrupted for homemade fried chicken. Please, Mrs. Cochrane, wait." Jennifer scrambled from behind her desk, but Naomi was already pushing open the heavy oak door to Moose's private office. The sight that greeted her stopped her heart completely. Moose was pressed against his mahogany desk, his hands tangled in familiar blonde hair, his mouth locked in a passionate kiss with a woman whose back was to the door. The woman's black pencil skirt was hiked up, her silk blouse partially unbuttoned, and her legs were wrapped around Moose's waist with an intimacy that spoke of countless encounters, just like this one. The lunch bag slipped from Naomi's numb fingers, hitting the marble floor with a crash that echoed through the office like a gunshot. Both Moose and the woman sprang apart instantly, and when the blonde turned around, Naomi's world tilted completely off its axis. Sophia Smith, the personal assistant who had supposedly transferred to the London office months ago, the woman who was clearly, unmistakably pregnant, her bump round and obvious under her silk blouse. "Naomi!" Moose's face went completely white, his hands shaking as he tried to straighten his disheveled clothing. "This isn't... I can explain... Can you?" Naomi's voice was eerily calm despite the fact that her entire body was trembling. "Can you explain why Sophia, who supposedly moved to London, is here? And pregnant. Very pregnant." Sophia smoothed down her skirt with deliberate slowness, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. "Hello, Naomi. I think it's time for a proper introduction. Sophia Smith. And yes, I'm carrying Moose's baby." The words hit Naomi like a physical assault. She gripped the doorframe for support, her vision swimming as the magnitude of the betrayal crashed over her. "How far along?" 23 weeks, Sophia replied, her hand moving protectively to her visible bump. "Nearly 6 months along. Funny how that timing works out, isn't it?" Naomi's mind raced frantically. 23 weeks meant Sophia had gotten pregnant when Naomi was already 16 weeks along, which meant... "The affair," she whispered. "How long?" "Tell her, Moose," Sophia said sweetly when he remained frozen in mortified silence. "Tell your wife how long we've been together." "Naomi, please let me explain." Moose stepped toward her, but she held up a hand that stopped him cold. "How long?" Her voice cracked with anguish, and Maya responded to her mother's distress with frantic movement that made Naomi gasp and clutch her belly. "Nearly a year," Sophia answered when Moose couldn't find his voice. "He came to me nearly a year ago, right when you started showing." Funny how seeing his wife pregnant made him want to play with someone else. Nearly a year. While she was glowing with pregnancy, planning their nursery, trusting him completely, he had been carrying on a relationship with another woman. "I trusted you," Naomi whispered, her voice breaking. "I defended you to everyone who said you'd married beneath your social class. I believed you when you said I was enough, that our love was real." "It is real," Moose said desperately. "Naomi, what I feel for you is real. This thing with Sophia, it's complicated, but it doesn't change how much I love you." "Complicated?" Naomi's voice rose to a sob. "She's pregnant with your child." "How is that complicated? That's betrayal. That's lies. That's..." Another strong contraction gripped her, and she doubled over slightly. "Look what you're doing to yourself," Sophia said with false concern, though her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "All this stress can't be good for the baby, though I suppose you're learning what it feels like to be hurt by someone you trust." The cruelty in Sophia's voice, the obvious pleasure she was taking in Naomi's pain, revealed everything about why this affair had happened. This woman didn't just want Moose. She wanted to destroy what he had with Naomi. "You knew," Naomi said, straightening up despite the pain. "You knew he was married. You knew I was pregnant. You did this deliberately." "I did what any smart woman would do," Sophia replied, stepping closer with predatory confidence. "I saw what I wanted and took it." "The better woman won, Naomi." "Better?" Naomi's voice was deadly quiet now. "Better women don't sleep with married men. Better women don't deliberately destroy families. You're not better. You're just willing to accept scraps of attention that I would never settle for." "Scraps?" Sophia's composure cracked slightly. "He's been choosing my bed over yours for nearly a year. He's been..." "Stop!" Moose finally found his voice, stepping between the two women. "Both of you, just stop. This isn't how anyone should find out about..." "About what, Moose?" Naomi's voice cut through his attempt at damage control. "About your other life? About the fact that everything you've said to me for the past year has been a lie?" "Not everything was a lie." "Yes, it was!" The words tore from Naomi's throat with such force that both Moose and Sophia stepped back. "Every I love you, every promise about our future, every tender moment, all of it was performance while you were building a real relationship with her." Another contraction gripped her, stronger this time, and Naomi felt a wetness between her legs that made her panic. "Something's wrong," she gasped, looking down to see fluid on the marble floor. Her water just broke, Sophia observed with clinical detachment. Looks like baby Maya is ready to meet her cheating father. Call 911, Moose shouted, finally snapping into action. But as he reached for his phone, he found himself caught between his wife, who was clearly going into labor, and Sophia, who was watching the chaos with satisfaction. Don't, Naomi said quietly, even as another contraction made her grip the doorframe. I'll call myself. I don't need anything from you. Naomi, you're in labor. Yes, I am. And my daughter is about to be born into a world where her father is a liar and a cheat. Congratulations, Moose. You've managed to ruin the most important day of our lives. As Naomi carefully made her way toward the elevator, leaving behind the shattered remains of her marriage and the two people who had destroyed it, she felt something powerful awakening inside her chest. It wasn't just labor pains. It was the birth of a woman who would never again accept being treated as less than she deserved. Maya was coming, and maybe that was fitting. Maybe her daughter was as eager as she was to start a new life, free from the lies and betrayal that had poisoned what should have been the happiest time of their lives. It's just you and me now, baby girl, Naomi whispered as the elevator doors closed on her old life. And Mommy's going to make sure that's more than enough. The contractions were getting stronger, but so was her resolve. By the time this day was over, she would be a mother, and she would be free. Chapter 6. Rising from the Ashes. 5 days after her world ended, Naomi Girma held her perfect daughter in the maternity ward of Emory Hospital, and for the first time in her life, she understood what unconditional love actually meant. Maya Rose Girma, no longer Cochrane, had been born at exactly 39 weeks gestation after 14 hours of labor that Naomi had endured alone by choice. When the nurses asked about the father, Naomi had simply said, "He's not available." And when Moose had tried to push his way into the delivery room, hospital security had quietly but firmly escorted him out at Naomi's request. Now, as dawn light filtered through the hospital room windows, Naomi gazed down at her daughter's perfect face and felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. Maya had Moose's dark hair and strong jawline, but her eyes, when they opened, were all Naomi's, intelligent, determined, and already showing hints of the strength she had inherited from her mother. "I'm never going to let anyone make you feel like you're not enough," Naomi whispered to her sleeping daughter. "I'm going to teach you that you're worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth everything." A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Diana Chen, her best friend and attorney, slipped into the room carrying coffee and a briefcase full of legal documents. "How are my two favorite girls?" Diana asked softly, setting down the coffee and immediately washing her hands before approaching the baby. "Stronger than I ever imagined possible," Naomi replied honestly, "and more determined than I've ever been in my life." "Good, because I've got news about the divorce proceedings." Diana settled into the bedside chair and opened her briefcase. Moose's attorneys filed an emergency petition for immediate paternal rights, but the judge denied it pending a full custody evaluation. What does that mean? It means he doesn't get to waltz in here and play devoted father after abandoning you during labor. The court wants to see evidence of his commitment to Maya's welfare before granting unsupervised visitation. Naomi felt a surge of gratitude for the legal system's protection of her daughter. And the property settlement? Here's where it gets interesting. Diana's smile was sharp with satisfaction. The house is legally yours. You designed it, your firm managed the construction, and you financed it through your business profits before marriage. Georgia law supports your claim as separate property. What about his settlement offer? $60 million plus the house, plus generous child support, but, and this is a big but, he wants joint custody and a non-disclosure agreement. Naomi's eyes hardened. Absolutely not. That's what I thought you'd say. So I drafted a counter-proposal. Diana pulled out a different set of documents. No settlement money beyond legally required child support. You keep the house and full custody. He gets supervised visitation once a week, pending completion of parenting classes and counseling. Perfect. Naomi's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I'm not interested in his money. I never was. I just want to protect Maya from a man who's proven he can't prioritize his family when it matters. The first few weeks at home with Maya established a rhythm that surprised Naomi with its completeness. She had expected to feel overwhelmed as a single mother, but instead found herself energized by the clarity of her new life. Every feeding, every diaper change, every quiet moment rocking Maya to sleep felt like an act of rebellion against the chaos Moose had created. Her mother, Rose, had moved in temporarily to help during those crucial early weeks, and watching her daughter navigate single motherhood with such grace filled her with pride and amazement. "You're a natural at this, sweetheart," Rose observed one morning as Naomi efficiently managed Maya's feeding while simultaneously reviewing blueprints for a new project on her tablet. "I've never seen anyone multitask quite like this." "I had good teachers," Naomi replied, thinking of her own mother's strength in raising her largely alone while her father worked long hours in construction. "And good motivation." Maya was an easy baby, as if she sensed that her mother needed her cooperation during this rebuilding phase. She slept in reliable 3-hour stretches, ate eagerly without fussing, and seemed to thrive under Naomi's devoted attention. Her baby smiles came early and often, as if she already understood that she was the center of someone's entire universe. The transformation of her home office into a space that accommodated both professional excellence and motherhood became a symbol of her new identity. She installed a beautiful bassinet beside her drafting table, created a play area with soft toys and educational materials, and established routines that allowed her to work productively during Maya's naps while being completely present during her waking hours. Client meetings were rescheduled to accommodate feeding times, but rather than seeing this as a limitation, Naomi discovered that her approach to architecture had become more intuitive and human-centered. Designing spaces while caring for a baby gave her insights into how buildings could better serve families, how layouts could accommodate the real needs of people living complex lives. Professional opportunities began flowing in as word spread about the talented architect who had emerged from personal crisis stronger than ever. The hospital design that had brought her initial recognition was now being studied as a model for healing architecture, and requests for consultations were arriving from cities across the southeast. Over the following weeks, as Naomi recovered at home with Maya, she began building their new life with the same methodical precision she used to design buildings. Every decision was made with Maya's future in mind, every choice designed to create stability and strength. Moose tried everything to see his daughter. He sent flowers that Naomi donated to the hospital where Maya was born. He sent expensive gifts that she returned unopened with notes asking that he donate the money to charity instead. He wrote increasingly desperate letters that she filed away unread for Maya to decide about when she was older. He called constantly until Naomi changed her number, hired a service to screen her calls, and made it clear through Diana that all communication needed to go through their attorneys. His attempts at manipulation became more creative and more pathetic. He showed up at her favorite coffee shop in Virginia Highland, hoping for an accidental encounter, but Naomi simply ordered her drink and left without acknowledging him. He had mutual friends call to plead his case, but most of their former social circle had already chosen sides based on the dramatic way their marriage had ended. He even tried to use his business connections to interfere with her architectural contracts, but Naomi's reputation was so solid that his interference only made him look petty and vindictive. The supervised visitation sessions, when they finally began, were heartbreaking disasters. Maya, now 3 months old and bonded exclusively to her mother, would cry inconsolably in Moose's presence. The court-appointed supervisor noted his frustration with normal baby behavior, his attempts to force affection that couldn't be manufactured, and his obvious discomfort with the basic tasks of infant care. Babies don't understand complex emotions like forgiveness or family obligation, the family therapist explained to Moose after a particularly difficult session where Maya had screamed for 45 minutes straight. Maya only knows that you're a stranger who appears twice a week and expects her to be comfortable with you. Building a relationship with an infant requires patience, consistency, and acceptance that it might take months or even years. He even had his mother, Victoria, attempt to broker peace during an awkward visit that demonstrated just how completely the family dynamics had shifted. "Naomi, dear," Victoria had said during her visit to the Annesley Park home, her voice trembling with genuine remorse as she looked around the beautiful space that should have been her son's sanctuary. He's beside himself with grief. He knows he made terrible mistakes, but Maya is his daughter too. "Maya is my daughter," Naomi had replied calmly while nursing her baby in the sunlit living room that she had designed to be both elegant and family-friendly. "And I'll decide when and if he's earned the right to be in her life. Right now, he's demonstrated that his judgment regarding family priorities is severely compromised. But surely you can forgive. Forgiveness isn't the issue, Mrs. Cochran. Trust is. And trust, once broken the way he broke it, has to be rebuilt through actions, not words. Maya deserves a father who chooses her consistently, not one who might abandon her again when something more exciting comes along." Victoria looked down at her granddaughter, who was nursing contentedly while watching her grandmother with curious, alert eyes, and her voice broke with emotion. "She's beautiful, Naomi. Absolutely perfect. And you're raising her so well, all alone." "I'm not alone," Naomi corrected gently but firmly. "I have my mother, my grandmother Rose, my aunts and uncles from Georgia, and a growing community of people who love and support us both. Maya will never lack for family, just the particular family member who chose to forfeit his place." Victoria had left empty-handed, but not before expressing genuine regret for how she had treated Naomi during their courtship. "I was wrong about you," she had admitted as she stood to leave, her eyes lingering on Maya's peaceful face. "You're exactly the kind of woman who deserved better than what my son gave you. If there's ever anything you or Maya need, anything at all, please don't hesitate to call." Meanwhile, Moose's life was unraveling spectacularly in ways that would have been satisfying to watch if Naomi had cared enough to pay attention. His professional reputation suffered as word of the affair, and dramatic divorce spread through Atlanta's tight-knit business community. Deals fell through when partners questioned his judgment and character. His drinking increased as he struggled with the isolation that came from losing not just his family, but the respect of his peers. Sophia had given birth to their son, Michael, 4 months after Maya, but their relationship had imploded almost immediately after the birth. Sophia had expected Moose to leave Naomi after discovering her pregnancy, but when he had tried to maintain relationships with both families after Maya's birth, she had realized he was never going to choose her completely. "You're pathetic," Sophia had told him during their final confrontation in the hospital where she had given birth to Michael. "I wasted 2 years waiting for you to grow a spine, and you still can't choose. You want to keep your wife's house while playing weekend father to our son? Well, I'm done waiting. Michael and I are moving to California with someone who actually wants to be a father." The man Sophia had met was a successful tech entrepreneur named David who had fallen for her during her pregnancy and proposed within months of Michael's birth. He offered to adopt Michael, give him his name, and raise him as his own son, everything Moose had never been willing to do for either of his children. "David sees a future with us," Sophia had explained coldly during her last conversation with Moose. "He wants to be Michael's father, not just his weekend visitor. He wants to build a real family, not juggle secret relationships. You had 2 chances to be a real father, Moose, and you chose yourself both times." And just like that, Moose had lost his mistress, his second child, and any illusion that he could manage multiple relationships without consequences. Michael would grow up in San Francisco with a stepfather who chose him completely, while Maya grew up in Atlanta with a biological father who had forfeited his place through his own selfishness. But it was losing Naomi and Maya that truly destroyed him. Every day without them felt like a physical wound that wouldn't heal. He had had everything: a wife who loved him unconditionally, a beautiful daughter, a family that could have been his legacy, and he had thrown it all away for excitement that had lasted less than 2 years. His business began suffering as his focus deteriorated. Colleagues noted his distraction during important meetings. His drinking increased to the point where he was calling in sick regularly, and his reputation in Atlanta's professional circles began reflecting the personal chaos he had created. The golden boy, who had once been expected to inherit an empire, was becoming a cautionary tale about the consequences of believing your own privilege would protect you from accountability. 6 months after Maya's birth, Naomi was thriving in ways that surprised even her closest friends. She had expanded Gurma Design into one of Atlanta's most respected architectural firms, landed contracts for 2 major hospital projects and a luxury resort development, and was raising Maya with a joy and confidence that amazed everyone who knew her. The professional recognition came pouring in as Atlanta's business community rallied around the talented architect who had emerged from personal tragedy stronger than ever. Her innovative approaches to healing architecture were being studied by firms across the Southeast, and her waiting list for residential projects had grown to over 18 months. "You're different," her mother observed during one of her visits from Georgia, watching Naomi effortlessly manage a video conference with international clients, while Maya played quietly in her portable playpen nearby. "Stronger, more yourself than you've ever been." "I had to become different," Naomi replied, reaching down to hand Maya a new toy without missing a beat in her conversation about sustainable building materials. The woman who was grateful for Moose's attention couldn't protect Maya from a father who might abandon her when something more exciting came along. "So I became someone who could." "And what about love? For yourself, not just for Maya?" Naomi was quiet for a long moment, watching her daughter's determined efforts to stack colorful rings, her tiny fingers grasping with the same persistence that had helped Naomi rebuild her entire life. "I think I'm done with romantic love. Maya is enough. Building something meaningful with my work is enough. I don't need a man to feel complete anymore." "That's not the same as not wanting one," her mother said gently. "Maybe not. But wanting and needing are different things. I needed Moose's love once. Now I just need to be the mother Maya deserves and the woman I was always meant to become." The truth was more complex than Naomi admitted, even to herself. Late at night, when Maya was sleeping and the house was quiet, she sometimes imagined what it would be like to share her triumphs with someone who truly understood their value. She thought about lazy Sunday mornings with a partner who wanted to build something lasting, someone who would see Maya not as baggage, but as a blessing. But those dreams felt dangerous, like luxuries she couldn't afford. The cost of trusting the wrong person again was too high when Maya's security was at stake. Maya's development became a source of constant joy and wonder. At 6 months, she was already showing signs of the intelligence and determination she had inherited from her mother. Her eyes would track Naomi's movements around the room with an intensity that suggested she was studying and learning from everything she observed. When Naomi worked at her drafting table, Maya would lie on her back nearby, making soft cooing sounds as if she was offering commentary on the designs. The bond between mother and daughter was extraordinary to witness. Maya seemed to sense Naomi's moods, becoming more active and playful when her mother was happy, more calm and clingy when work stress made Naomi tense. During feeding times, she would gaze up at Naomi with such trust and adoration that it sometimes brought tears to her eyes. Maya's first laugh came at 5 months, a delighted giggle that erupted when Naomi was making silly faces during a diaper change. The sound was so pure and joyful that Naomi found herself laughing through tears, realizing that this moment, just the two of them in their sunny nursery, was more beautiful than any of the grand romantic gestures Moose had ever made. Over the following months, Naomi threw herself into both motherhood and her career with a passion that impressed everyone around her. Maya grew from a tiny newborn into a bright, curious baby who seemed to sense that her mother was her whole world. Every milestone, her first genuine laugh, the way she would reach eagerly for Naomi when she walked into the room, her determined efforts to roll from back to front, felt like evidence that love without betrayal was not only possible, but more beautiful than anything Naomi had experienced before. The woman who emerged from that pain was magnificent. She was confident without being bitter, strong without being closed off, and absolutely devoted to creating a life so beautiful that she would never again be tempted to settle for being someone's second choice. Her architectural work took on new depth and meaning as she poured her experiences of rebuilding into designs that helped others heal. The children's hospital wing became her masterpiece, a space that turned medical treatment into an experience of hope and beauty, where natural light and carefully designed play areas created environments that supported both healing and family bonding. Corporate clients began seeking her out specifically because her buildings seemed to understand human nature in ways that purely technical designs never could. The financial independence she had built gave her choices that many divorced women never had. She could afford the best childcare when needed, could travel for work without worrying about expenses, and could make decisions based purely on what was best for Maya rather than what was financially necessary. When Maya turned 9 months old, reaching for everything within her grasp and babbling constantly as if narrating her discoveries, Naomi realized she had created something remarkable. Not just a business or a beautiful home, but a life that felt authentic and purposeful in ways her marriage never had. But late at night, when Maya was sleeping peacefully in her crib and the house was quiet, Naomi sometimes wondered if she would ever trust another man enough to let him into their carefully constructed sanctuary. The betrayal had taught her that even the most devoted-seeming husband could be living a double life, that promises meant nothing without consistent action, that love without respect was just performance. She had no way of knowing that 6 months later, a man named Harry Harris would walk into her life and prove that real love, the kind that honored and cherished and protected, wasn't just a fairy tale. She couldn't imagine that someone would see her strength and want to support it rather than diminish it, would see Maya as a blessing rather than a complication, would choose them both completely and without reservation. But first, she had to finish becoming the woman strong enough to recognize it when it appeared. The transformation was almost complete. Soon, the Queen would be ready for the love story she actually deserved. Chapter 7. Love Like She Deserves. 15 months after Maya's birth, when 31-year-old Naomi Germer stood at the podium accepting the Southeast Architectural Excellence Award, Harry Harris knew he was looking at the woman he'd spend the rest of his life trying to deserve. The Georgia World Congress Center was packed with the region's most influential architects, developers, and city planners, but Harry's attention was completely focused on the remarkable woman at the podium. Naomi commanded the stage with a confidence that was magnetic, her voice clear and passionate as she spoke about designing spaces that healed communities. "This award represents more than architectural achievement," Naomi said, holding the crystal trophy that recognized her innovative work on the Children's Hospital of Atlanta expansion. "It represents what's possible when we build from a foundation of authenticity and purpose rather than compromise and shortcuts." Harry, now 34 and the founder of Green Oasis Resorts, had attended the ceremony at his architect's suggestion, looking for fresh talent for his newest project. Instead, he found himself completely captivated by a woman whose strength and intelligence seemed to radiate from every word she spoke. "Who is she?" he whispered to his colleague David Richardson. "Naomi Germer, brilliant architect, single mother, survivor. There was a messy divorce from the Cochrane heir about a year ago, but she's rebuilt her life and career stronger than ever." Harry couldn't take his eyes off her as she left the stage, moving with the kind of grace that came from surviving something devastating and emerging victorious. When she stopped to network with other attendees, he noticed how people gravitated toward her, drawn by something authentic and inspiring. After the ceremony, Harry found himself approaching her at the reception, his usual smooth confidence replaced by something he hadn't felt in years, genuine nervousness around a woman who clearly didn't need anything from anyone. "Miss Germer, Harry Harris." He extended his hand, and when she shook it, he felt that rare spark of true connection. "That was an extraordinary presentation. Your philosophy about healing architecture is exactly what the hospitality industry needs to embrace." Naomi studied him with intelligent eyes that seemed to see through any pretense. He was handsome in an understated way, tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile that didn't feel practiced or calculated. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. And you work in hospitality." He owns Green Oasis Resorts, sustainable luxury hotels focused on environmental responsibility and community integration. Harry paused, then added honestly, "Though after hearing your presentation, he realizes his properties could be doing much more to create truly healing spaces." "She's familiar with your work, actually. The Asheville Resort is stunning, the way you integrated the mountain landscape into the guest experience." Naomi's genuine interest surprised him. Most people either wanted something from him or were intimidated by his success. Coming from the woman who just revolutionized pediatric hospital design, that means everything. Harry gathered his courage. "Would you be interested in discussing a potential collaboration? He's planning a new family resort in the North Georgia mountains, and after seeing your work—" "She'd be very interested in hearing more," Naomi said with a smile that made Harry's heart race. "But she should mention up front, she comes with a 15-month-old daughter. They're a package deal." "Even better," Harry said without hesitation. "Children see the world with wonder and honesty. Those are exactly the qualities that inspire the best design work. He'd love to meet her sometime if that would be appropriate." That simple response, his immediate acceptance and genuine enthusiasm about Maya, told Naomi more about Harry's character than any resume could have. Here was a man who didn't see her daughter as an obstacle or complication, but as an asset and joy. 3 weeks later, Harry sat on the living room floor of Naomi's Ansley Park home, building elaborate block towers for 15-month-old Maya to demolish, while Naomi worked on his resort designs at the dining table. The scene was domestic and comfortable, but what struck Naomi most was how naturally Harry had integrated into their established routine. Maya, now walking confidently and chattering in her own toddler language, had taken to Harry immediately. She'd cruise around the room using furniture for support, then plop down next to Harry and hand him blocks with imperious demands for more. "She's got excellent engineering instincts," Harry told Naomi, as Maya carefully placed a block on top of his tower before immediately knocking the whole thing down. "And decisive leadership skills. She gets that from her mother," Naomi replied, smiling as she watched the interaction. "Stubborn determination and a refusal to accept anything less than exactly what she wants." "Smart girl," Harry said, immediately beginning another tower construction project at Maya's demanding gestures. "Those are good qualities to inherit." What amazed Naomi was how comfortable this felt. There was no awkwardness, no sense that Harry was performing or trying to win points. He genuinely enjoyed Maya's company, and Maya, who was usually shy with new people, had accepted him completely. "She has to ask," Naomi said during a quiet moment while Maya napped in her crib. "Why aren't you married? Or dating someone? You're successful, kind, great with children." Harry was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. He was married once, actually. College sweethearts who grew into different people. They divorced amicably 5 years ago. No children, just two people who realized they wanted different futures. And since then? He dated but never found anyone who made him want to change his bachelor lifestyle. Until now. His eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. He hasn't been looking for someone to complete him, Naomi. He's been waiting for someone who was already complete on her own. The honesty in his voice was both thrilling and terrifying. After Moose's manipulation and lies, Harry's straightforward communication felt like a revelation. "She's not looking for anything romantic," Naomi said carefully. "Maya and her work are enough right now. He understands that completely, and he's not trying to fill any role in your life except the one you might choose to give him." Harry moved closer, but not invasively. He just wants to spend time with two amazing people who make every day better just by existing. Over the following months, Harry became a constant but never overwhelming presence in their lives. He brought coffee when Naomi worked late on projects, but never expected to stay. He installed a car seat in his Tesla so he could help with Maya's transportation to daycare, but never assumed he had parental authority. He learned Maya's bedtime routine and favorite songs, but always deferred to Naomi's rules and preferences. Most importantly, he never once made Naomi feel like she owed him anything for his kindness. "She doesn't understand you," Naomi told him one evening as they sat on her back porch while Maya played in her sandbox nearby. "Most men would have expectations by now. They'd want to know where this relationship is going, what they're getting out of spending so much time with a single mother." "Most men are idiots," Harry replied simply, watching Maya carefully sort her toys by color with the intense concentration that only toddlers possessed. What he's getting is the privilege of knowing two incredible people who make him want to be better every day. "But don't you want more? Romance, intimacy, a traditional relationship?" Harry turned to look at her fully, his expression serious but gentle. "He wants whatever you want to give him, Naomi. If that's friendship, he's grateful. If that's eventually something more, he'd be honored. But he's not keeping score or waiting for some relationship milestone. He's just happy to be here." That night, after Harry had gone home and Maya was sleeping peacefully, Naomi stood in her bathroom mirror and really looked at herself for the first time in months. The woman staring back at her was different from the one who'd married Moose 3 years ago. This woman had lines of experience around her eyes, a strength in her posture that came from surviving betrayal, and a confidence that no longer depended on anyone else's validation. She was also, she realized with surprise, ready to love again. Not because she needed to be loved, but because she'd found someone worthy of her love. The next morning she called Harry with her heart pounding. "Good morning, beautiful," he answered, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "She has a proposition for you." He's listening. "Maya's going to her grandmother's this weekend. Would you like to have dinner, just the two of them?" The pause that followed was pregnant with possibility. "He would love nothing more," Harry said softly. "Should he pick her up at 7? 7 is perfect." That Saturday evening, as Harry arrived at her door with flowers that he'd clearly chosen for their meaning rather than their expense, white roses that symbolized new beginnings, Naomi felt something she'd thought was lost forever. Hope. Not desperate hope that grasped at any possibility of love, but confident hope that recognized real partnership when it appeared. "You look stunning," Harry said as she opened the door, but his eyes held something deeper than appreciation for her appearance. They held recognition of who she was, beyond the beautiful exterior. "She feels like herself again," Naomi replied honestly, "for the first time in a very long time." As they drove to dinner, talking easily about everything and nothing, Naomi realized that this was what she'd been missing in her marriage to Moose. Not passion or excitement or grand romantic gestures, but simple compatibility. The comfort of being completely herself with someone who not only accepted but celebrated who she was. The evening stretched late into the night, filled with conversation that revealed how perfectly aligned their values, dreams, and approaches to life were. Harry had built his business on principles of sustainability and community impact. Naomi had built her career on designs that prioritized human welfare over profit margins. They both believed in building things that lasted, that mattered, that made the world better. "She has to ask you something," Naomi said as they sat on her front porch as the evening wound down. "Anything." "Why her? Why a single mother with baggage and walls and a complicated situation?" Harry was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because she's not looking for someone to save her. She's not looking for someone to complete her. She's already complete, already strong, already magnificent. And he's never met anyone he respected more." Respect? Love without respect is just obsession or possession. Respect without love is just admiration. But love with respect. Harry's eyes met hers in the porch light. That's partnership. That's what he wants to build with you if you'll let him. And as he kissed her goodnight, softly, respectfully, with a promise of more beautiful things to come, Naomi finally understood the difference between being chosen and being cherished. This was what it felt like to be loved by a man who saw her strength as something to celebrate, not something to manage or diminish. What happens when Moose discovers that Naomi has found a love that makes their marriage look like a cheap imitation? His world is about to get much smaller. Chapter 8. The Desperate Ex-Husband. 18 months after losing everything that mattered, 35-year-old Moose Cochran sat in his car, watching another man live the life he'd thrown away, and his jealousy was becoming dangerous. From his BMW parked across the street, Moose watched Harry push 2-year-old Maya on the swing set in Piedmont Park, while Naomi spread out a picnic blanket nearby. The sight of his daughter giggling and reaching for Harry, calling him "ha-ha" in her sweet toddler voice, felt like a knife twisting in his chest. Maya was walking now, her chubby legs carrying her with determined purpose as she explored the playground. She had his dark hair, but Naomi's expressive eyes, and she was beautiful in the way that made strangers stop and smile. She should have been running to him, should have been calling his name, should have been the center of his world. Instead, she was building a bond with Harry Harris that grew stronger every day. It had been 12 months since Naomi had thrown him out of their home, 12 months of watching his life disintegrate piece by piece. His relationship with Sophia had ended in spectacular failure when she'd moved to San Francisco with their son Michael and her new husband, a venture capitalist who'd actually wanted to marry her and raise their child together. "You're toxic," Sophia had told him during their final video call. "You destroy everything you touch because you want everything but commit to nothing. Michael is better off never knowing you." Even his own son was lost to him now, growing up 3,000 miles away with a stepfather who would teach him values that Moose had never learned. His family's disownment remained absolute. His parents had never forgiven him for choosing Naomi over their wishes, and they'd certainly never forgiven him for destroying that marriage through his own selfishness. Theodore Cochran had publicly stated that Moose was no longer considered part of the Cochran legacy, and the family fortune that had once been his birthright was now being restructured to benefit charity instead of him. But it was losing Naomi and Maya that truly tortured him. Every night, he stalked their social media accounts from fake profiles, desperate for glimpses of the life they were building without him. Every photo of Naomi's success, every video of Maya's milestones, every image of their happiness with Harry was like salt in a wound that refused to heal. Today's torture was watching Harry teach Maya to feed ducks at the pond, while Naomi looked on with the kind of serene happiness that had once been reserved for him. The three of them looked like a perfect family, natural, loving, completely content with each other. Harry lifted Maya up so she could reach the ducks better, and her delighted laughter carried across the park. When she accidentally dropped the bread, Harry patiently helped her pick up each piece, never showing frustration or impatience with her toddler clumsiness. "That should be me," Moose muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. "That's my daughter. My family." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true anymore. Biology didn't make him Maya's father. Presence did. Love did. Consistency did. And Harry had been all of those things while Moose had been fighting a custody battle he was slowly losing. His supervised visitations with Maya had been disasters from the beginning. She didn't remember him, didn't trust him, and spent most of their court-mandated 2 hours together crying for mama and ha-ha. The family therapist had gently suggested that Moose needed to lower his expectations and focus on slowly building a relationship rather than demanding immediate father-daughter bonding. "Maya doesn't understand why she should love you," the therapist had explained during their last session. "In her world, Harry is the man who reads her bedtime stories, comforts her when she's scared, and shows up every day. You're the stranger who appears twice a week and expects instant affection." The truth was devastating but undeniable. Harry had become Maya's father figure through action and presence, while Moose remained a biological footnote who'd missed every important moment of her life. His phone buzzed with a notification. Naomi had posted a new photo on her architectural firm's Instagram. She stood in front of the completed children's hospital wing she'd designed, holding Maya on her hip while Harry stood beside them. The caption read, "Celebrating the opening of the Maya Gurma Healing Garden, with the two people who inspire every design." The Maya Gurma Healing Garden. She'd named part of the hospital after their daughter, his daughter, and Harry was standing there like he had every right to be part of that honor. Unable to contain his rage any longer, Moose got out of his car and walked toward the picnic area where his former family was enjoying their perfect afternoon. "Excuse me?" he said, his voice carrying more aggression than he'd intended. All three of them looked up. Maya immediately moved closer to Harry, sensing tension even at her young age. Naomi's expression became carefully neutral, the warm happiness draining from her face. "Moose," she said calmly, "this isn't your scheduled visitation day. He wanted to talk to you about them." He gestured toward Harry, who had positioned himself protectively between Moose and Maya without making it obvious. "There's nothing to discuss," Naomi replied, standing up and brushing grass off her sundress. "Maya, come to Mama." But Maya, instead of going to either parent, reached up for Harry, who lifted her smoothly while keeping his eyes on Moose. "Dada," Maya said clearly, patting Harry's face with her small hands. The word hit Moose like a physical blow. His daughter, his own biological child, was calling another man Daddy. "She's confused," Moose said desperately. "She doesn't understand." "She understands perfectly," Naomi said quietly. "She calls the man who takes care of her Daddy. Biology is just genetics, Moose. Family is built through love and presence. But he's her real father." "Harry is her real father," Naomi interrupted, her voice firm but not unkind. "You're her biological father. There's a difference." Harry, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke. "Moose, he respects your relationship with Maya, and he hopes you can build something meaningful with her as she grows up. But right now, she needs stability and consistency, not confusion about who her primary caregivers are." "Primary caregivers?" Moose's voice rose dangerously. "She's his daughter." Maya started to whimper at the angry tone, and Harry immediately began bouncing her gently while humming a lullaby that clearly calmed her. The contrast between Harry's immediate focus on Maya's comfort and Moose's focus on his own emotions was stark and damning. "She is your daughter," Naomi agreed, "and she always will be. But she's also a little girl who needs peace and security, not adults fighting over her. If you want to be in her life, you need to prove you can put her needs first." "And what about your needs?" Moose asked bitterly. "What about what you're giving up by settling for him instead of fighting for your marriage?" Naomi looked at Harry, who was now singing softly to Maya while she played with his watch, completely absorbed in making her happy. Then she looked back at Moose. "She's not settling," she said simply. "She's choosing. Every day she chooses a man who shows up consistently, who treats her with respect, who loves Maya like she's his own. She's not fighting for a marriage anymore, Moose. She's building a partnership." "With him?" Moose's voice was full of disbelief and contempt. "With the man who's never lied to her, never betrayed her trust, never made her compete for his attention." Naomi's voice was calm but steel-strong. "With the man who saw her strength and chose to support it rather than undermine it." As Moose watched Harry successfully calm Maya's fussing and saw the look of pure gratitude and love in Naomi's eyes, he realized the scope of what he'd lost. It wasn't just a wife and daughter, it was the chance to be the kind of man worthy of their love. "This isn't over," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "Yes, it is," Naomi replied with the absolute authority of a woman who'd reclaimed her power. "It's been over since the day she walked out of your office. Everything since then has just been you learning to accept it." As Moose drove away, leaving behind the sound of Maya's laughter and the sight of Naomi's peaceful happiness, he felt something dark and desperate growing in his chest. If he couldn't have her back, maybe he could at least make her understand what she'd given up. After all, he'd always been good at getting what he wanted. And what he wanted now was for Naomi to remember why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place, even if it meant destroying her new happiness to make her remember. What happens when Moose's desperation evolves into a calculated plan to reclaim what he believes is his? The final battle for Naomi's future is about to begin. Chapter 9. The Queen Prepares Her Throne. As 31-year-old Naomi planned the engagement party that would crown her transformation from betrayed wife to celebrated queen, she had no idea that across Atlanta, her desperate ex-husband was planning his final, pathetic attempt to destroy her happiness. The morning Georgia sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Germa Design's expanded offices in Buckhead as Naomi stood before a conference table covered with plans, sketches, and vendor contracts. But these weren't building designs. They were the blueprints for what would become the most talked-about engagement celebration in Atlanta's social history. "Maya, sweetheart, what do you think of these flowers?" Naomi asked her 2-year-old daughter, who was sitting in her special chair at the conference table, carefully arranging plastic blocks while helping with the planning. Maya looked up from her blocks and clapped her hands at the elegant white and gold floral arrangements Naomi was considering. "Pretty, Mama! Ha ha!" Maya babbled excitedly as the office door opened and Harry walked in carrying coffee from Naomi's favorite cafe and a small gift bag for Maya. "Good morning, beautiful ladies," Harry said, kissing Naomi softly before scooping Maya into his arms. "How's the party planning going?" "She's creating something spectacular," Naomi said with deep satisfaction, gesturing to her elaborate plans spread across the table. "The venue is confirmed, the Swan House at Atlanta History Center with the gardens for the ceremony. The guest list is at 400 and growing, and the surprise she has planned." Her smile was mysterious and powerful. "Should he be nervous?" Harry teased. though his eyes showed complete trust in whatever she was orchestrating. "Only if he's planning to change his mind about marrying her," Naomi replied, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him properly while Maya giggled and tried to push their faces together. "Never happening," Harry murmured against her lips. "He's the luckiest man in Georgia, and he knows it." What neither of them knew was that 15 minutes away in his downtown penthouse, Moose was finalizing his own plans, not for celebration, but for what he'd convinced himself was necessary intervention. The complete background report on Harry Harris, his private investigator, slid a thick folder across Moose's glass dining table. "Financial records, business dealings, personal relationships, everything you requested." Moose opened the folder with desperate hope, searching for anything: affairs, financial irregularities, legal problems, anything he could use to prove to Naomi that her perfect new fiancé wasn't what he seemed. But page after page revealed the same infuriating truth. Harry Harris was exactly what he appeared to be. His business practices were ethical and innovative. His previous relationships had ended amicably with no drama or betrayal. His financial records showed generous charitable giving and responsible management. Even his employees had nothing but praise for his leadership and character. "There has to be something," Moose muttered, flipping through pages of glowing references and clean background checks. "Nobody's this perfect." "If there are any skeletons, he's hidden them well," the investigator shrugged. "Sorry, Mr. Cochran. The guy's exactly what he appears to be: successful, ethical, and genuinely decent." The investigator left, but Moose continued staring at the evidence of Harry's character, his rage building with each positive reference. How dare this man be everything Moose had failed to be? How dare he step into Moose's life and be better at loving Naomi than her own husband had been? Meanwhile, across town, Naomi was putting the finishing touches on what would be more than just an engagement party. It would be her public declaration that she'd not only survived betrayal, but had transformed it into triumph. "She's invited your parents," she told Harry that evening as they reviewed RSVPs while Maya played with her blocks nearby. "His parents flew in from Charleston yesterday." Harry nodded. "They're so excited to officially welcome you and Maya to the family. His mother's been shopping for grandmother gifts all week." "That's wonderful." But she meant his other parents. Harry looked confused for a moment, then understanding dawned. "You invited Theodore and Victoria Cochran?" She did. Naomi's smile held layers of meaning. She wants them to see what they lost when they disowned their son. She wants them to see the granddaughter they rejected and the daughter-in-law who would have brought honor to their name. And now they get to watch another man's family claim the legacy they threw away. Harry's parents will be Maya's grandparents. Harry's name will be the one she grows up proud to carry. Harry studied her face, recognizing the strategic mind that had made her such a successful architect now being applied to something deeply personal. This is about more than celebrating their engagement, isn't it? It's about showing everyone, his family, their former friends, Moose himself, exactly what kind of life she's built after he tried to destroy her. Naomi's voice was calm, but filled with quiet power. It's about proving that she didn't just survive his betrayal. She used it to become magnificent. That Sunday afternoon, as Harry taught Maya to throw a ball in their backyard while Naomi worked on final party details, none of them noticed the figure watching from the street. Moose had taken to driving by the house regularly, torturing himself with glimpses of the domestic happiness he'd forfeited. Today's torture was watching Harry patiently retrieve the ball every time Maya's unsteady throws sent it rolling away, celebrating each attempt like she'd accomplished something amazing. When Maya finally managed to throw the ball directly to Harry, his proud, "Great job, princess," made her beam with accomplishment. "That should be me," Moose whispered, his hands clenching the steering wheel. "She's my daughter. This is my life he's stolen." But even as he thought it, Moose knew it wasn't true. Harry hadn't stolen anything. He'd simply been the man that Moose had never learned to be. Patient instead of demanding, present instead of distracted, honest instead of manipulative. That evening, Moose made a decision that would prove just how far he'd fallen from the man Naomi had once loved. If he couldn't find dirt on Harry, he'd create some chaos of his own. The engagement party would be the perfect opportunity. 400 guests, including everyone who mattered in Atlanta's social and business circles. He'd find a way to remind Naomi why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place, even if it meant ruining her perfect night to do it. "She thinks she's won," he muttered to himself as he watched Harry carry a sleepy Maya inside while Naomi gathered their picnic supplies. "She thinks she's built something I can't touch." But she's about to learn that some games don't end until he says they end. Meanwhile, inside the house, Naomi was giving Maya her bath while Harry cleaned up the kitchen, a domestic routine so natural and comfortable that it felt like they'd been a family for years instead of months. "She's nervous about Saturday," Naomi admitted as she toweled off a giggly Maya who was trying to splash water everywhere. "Not about marrying you. She's never been more certain of anything, but about having so many people watching, so many expectations." "What kind of expectations?" Harry asked, appearing in the bathroom doorway with Maya's favorite pajamas. "That she'll fail somehow. That this happiness is too good to last. That someone will find a way to take it away from her." Naomi lifted Maya out of the tub and into Harry's waiting arms, marveling as always at how naturally he'd stepped into the father role. "Nobody's taking anything away from you," Harry said firmly, expertly wrestling Maya into her pajamas while she giggled and tried to escape. "You built this life, Naomi. You earned this happiness, and anyone who has a problem with that can answer to him. Even if that someone is Moose?" Harry paused in his pajama duties, meeting her eyes seriously. "Especially if it's Moose. Maya, tell Mama that Daddy Harry doesn't let anyone hurt his girls." "Dada no hurt," Maya repeated proudly, clapping her hands. The casual way Harry referred to himself as Daddy Harry and Maya's immediate confident repetition of his protective promise made Naomi's heart swell with love and gratitude. This was what security looked like, not grand declarations or expensive gifts, but quiet, consistent protection and love. Later that night, after Maya was asleep and they were reviewing final party details, Naomi showed Harry the surprise she'd been planning. "She bought something," she said, pulling out official-looking documents. "Something that will make Saturday night very special." Harry studied the papers, his eyes widening in amazement. "You bought the old Cochrane estate? The family mansion in Brookhaven?" She did. "It went up for auction last month when the new owners defaulted on their loan. She outbid everyone else." Naomi's smile was triumphant and satisfied. "It's going to become the headquarters for the Germa Harris Foundation. But how did you... The estate must have cost millions." "Her firm has been very successful, and she's been saving and investing wisely. Plus, she had some help from her new business partner." She leaned over and kissed him softly. "Surprise, you're now co-owner of a historic Atlanta mansion." Harry was speechless for a moment, then started laughing. "You magnificent, brilliant, absolutely incredible woman. Do you realize what you've done? She's taken back what should have been Maya's inheritance anyway. The Cochrane estate will belong to a Cochrane again, just not the one anyone expected." "And Moose? Does he know?" "He will on Saturday night, along with everyone else." Naomi's eyes sparkled with anticipation. "She's going to announce it during her speech, right after you propose. The estate where his great-great-grandfather built the family fortune will now be dedicated to helping single mothers build their own empires." "That's not revenge," Harry said admiringly. "That's poetry." "The best revenge isn't destruction," Naomi said. settling into his arms while they looked over the party plans. It's transformation. It's becoming so magnificent that your betrayer realizes they didn't destroy you. They freed you to become who you were always meant to be. As they finalized the last details for Saturday night, neither of them suspected that Moose was across town, drunk and desperate, planning to crash their perfect evening with a last-ditch effort to reclaim what he'd lost. But Naomi had learned something important over the past 2 years. She was no longer the woman who could be destroyed by other people's choices. She was the woman who turned betrayal into strength, pain into purpose, and endings into magnificent new beginnings. Saturday night would prove that once and for all. What happens when Moose's final desperate gambit collides with Naomi's moment of ultimate triumph? The Queen's coronation is about to become the scene of his complete and final defeat. Chapter 10. The Queen's Coronation. The moment 34-year-old Harry Harris dropped to one knee in the Swan House Gardens before 400 witnesses, 31-year-old Naomi Gurma realized that the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's becoming so magnificent that their betrayal becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. The Swan House at Atlanta History Center had been transformed into something beyond fairy tale elegance. White roses and gold accents created a dreamlike atmosphere in the historic mansion, while the terraced gardens sparkled with thousands of twinkling lights as the sun set over Atlanta's skyline. Naomi stood at the top of the grand staircase in her stunning champagne-colored gown, greeting guests with the confidence of a woman who'd built her own empire from nothing. "You look absolutely radiant, dear," Victoria Cochran whispered as she approached with tears in her eyes. Theodore stood beside her, both of them clearly emotional about being included in this celebration. "She's so sorry for how she treated you. So very sorry." "Thank you for coming," Naomi replied graciously, her smile genuine but no longer desperate for their approval. "It means a great deal to have you here to celebrate this new chapter." 2-year-old Maya, resplendent in a tiny gold dress that matched her mother's, was charming everyone she met. When she saw her paternal grandparents, she studied them with curious eyes before reaching for Naomi. "Mama," she said clearly, then pointed to Harry, who was approaching with a group of his business associates. "Dada, ha-ha." The pride and pain that crossed Victoria's face was unmistakable. Her biological granddaughter called another man Daddy, and it was entirely her son's fault. "She's beautiful," Victoria said wistfully. "She has your strength, Naomi. Your grace." "She gets her best qualities from her mother," Harry said warmly as he joined them, naturally taking Maya into his arms. "And her sense of humor from her daddy Harry." The easy way Harry claimed his place in Maya's life, while remaining respectful of the grandparents' presence, demonstrated the kind of confident leadership that had made him successful in business and in love. As the evening progressed, Naomi worked the room like the powerhouse she'd become. She introduced Harry to architects who could benefit from hotel design contracts. She showcased her latest projects to potential clients. She graciously accepted congratulations while subtly demonstrating that her professional success had nothing to do with any man's support. But the real masterpiece came when Harry took the microphone at sunset, with the Atlanta skyline providing a breathtaking backdrop. 2 years ago, Harry began, his voice carrying clearly across the garden, a wise woman told him that love without respect is just obsession. Tonight, he wants to tell you about what love with respect actually looks like. The crowd quieted, sensing this would be more than a typical engagement speech. Naomi Gurma is the strongest person he's ever met, not because she's never been hurt, but because she transformed that hurt into something beautiful. She took betrayal and built trust. She took abandonment and built security. She took pain and built purpose. Naomi felt tears threatening as Harry continued, Maya content in her arms while 400 people listened to her worth being proclaimed publicly. She didn't need him to complete her. She was already complete. She didn't need him to save her. She'd already saved herself. She just needed someone worthy of standing beside the queen she'd become. That's when Harry dropped to one knee in front of everyone, pulling out a ring that sparkled in the garden lights. "Naomi Gurma, will you marry him and let him spend his life proving every day that he knows how lucky he is?" "Yes," Naomi whispered, then louder, "Yes." As Harry slipped the ring onto her finger and the crowd erupted in celebration, the garden doors opened and Moose stumbled in, clearly intoxicated and desperate. "This is wrong!" he shouted over the applause, weaving through the shocked guests toward the stage. "She's his wife, the mother of his child. This is all wrong." Instead of panic or embarrassment, Naomi felt only calm certainty. This was the moment she'd unconsciously prepared for. "Moose," she said into the microphone, her voice carrying to every corner of the garden. "How unexpected." "Naomi, please," he slurred, approaching the stage while guests recorded everything on their phones. "He loves you. He made mistakes, but he can fix this. They belong together." "They did belong together," Naomi replied with devastating calm, "until he chose to belong with someone else. Now she belongs with the man who chose her completely and honestly." "Harry doesn't know you like he does," Moose insisted, swaying dangerously. "He can't love you the way—" "You're absolutely right," Naomi interrupted, and hope flickered in Moose's eyes. "Harry doesn't love her the way you did. Harry's love doesn't come with lies or betrayal or competing with other women for basic fidelity." The crowd began murmuring, and Theodore Cochrane stepped forward to try to escort his humiliated son away, but Moose shook him off. "You don't understand what you're giving up," Moose shouted desperately. "She understands perfectly," Naomi replied. "She's giving up uncertainty for security. She's giving up manipulation for honesty. She's giving up being grateful for scraps of attention, for being cherished completely." That's when Naomi played her final card. "There's one more announcement," she said to the crowd, her voice bright with triumph. "Today, she finalized the purchase of the historic Cochrane family estate in Brookhaven." Gasps rippled through the guests. The Cochrane estate was legendary, 5 generations of family history that had been lost to financial mismanagement. The estate will serve as headquarters for the Gurma Harris Foundation for Single Mothers, but more importantly, it will be Maya's inheritance. Her daughter will grow up in the home that represents Atlanta's history, a legacy she'll teach Maya to honor through service and authentic love. Victoria Cochrane stood up suddenly, her voice shaking with emotion. "May she speak?" Naomi nodded graciously. "She wants everyone here to know," Victoria announced to the silent crowd, "that Naomi Gurma is the daughter she always wanted and was too prejudiced to embrace. If her son was too foolish to treasure this remarkable woman, then she's grateful Harry Harris was wise enough to see what they missed." The emotional declaration from Moose's own mother was the final blow. As applause thundered through the garden, Moose looked around at 400 people celebrating the woman he'd discarded, watched his own parents claim the daughter-in-law he'd lost, and realized that his punishment was complete. He hadn't just lost Naomi, he'd become irrelevant to everyone who'd once mattered to him. As security quietly escorted him out, Naomi took the microphone one final time. "To every woman who's been told she's not enough, who's been betrayed by someone she trusted, who's been made to feel grateful for love that came with conditions, you are magnificent exactly as you are. Don't let anyone convince you to accept less than you deserve." As Harry kissed her under the Georgian stars, while Maya clapped and their guests celebrated around them, Naomi understood that this was her true victory, not the destruction of her enemy, but the creation of something so beautiful that his betrayal had become the catalyst for her greatest triumph. Because sometimes the best revenge is living so magnificently that your betrayer realizes they didn't destroy you, They set you free to become the queen you were always meant to be. The end.